Hey folks, this is Andy Crouch from All About Beer. I wanted to take a second to thank Pure Project for coming on as an underwriter. We appreciate having the support of this sustainably sourced San Diego brewery. Pure Project believes that quality ingredients and attention to detail matter, from grain to glass. You can enjoy their beer at multiple locations in San Diego and the North County. If you want to join Pure Project and the more than 25 other underwriters helping us pay our writers, podcasters, and artists, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. It's an affordable way to join the All About Beer community.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl. While some breweries are closing, others are turning to strategic partnerships, getting together with other brands and forming a new company that builds on strength. Heavy Seas, the longtime brewery in Maryland, is now part of B3, which includes 3 other breweries. Hugh, Sisson, the founder of Heavy Seas, is here to explain the move and share his thoughts on the current state of the industry. First, if you like this show, and judging by the folks who listen, you do, I hope you'll consider leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice. Helps other people find the show, which is important. Been talking about this on the show for a while now, and you often hear Andy Crouch at the cold open of the show. But the way we're able to keep bringing original content to the beer industry and to curious beer drinkers is through your support. We've created an affordable underwriting program that is easy on your budget, helps you get visibility, and is an altruistic way to directly fund writers, photographers, and editors. Please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to learn more. When you're at the website, poke around a little bit. Read some of the recent articles, peruse the archives, which go all the way back to the magazine's founding in 1979. Tune into other podcasts like Brewer to Brewer and the All About Beer podcast. You won't be disappointed. You can follow us on social media at All About Beer to keep up with everything else we have going on. We'll get into the conversation in a moment, but first, here's a note from this episode's sponsors. We thank them for their support, and we hope you'll give them your business. Today's episode is brought to you by Stomp Stickers. Stomp is built for the business community, serving everyone from small independents to larger franchises. Whether you need low minimums for a limited batch or bulk pricing for your go-to products, they've got you covered. Join thousands of breweries that trust Stomp for their custom printing needs. Go to stompstickers.com and try them out and score 15% off of your first order with the code FIRSTRUN.
Calling all hopheads. Dogfish Head's 60-minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60-minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60-minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
I'm so pleased to have Hugh Sisson back on the program. As the founder of Heavy Seas in Clipper City before that, he's been instrumental in setting the tone for early craft in America. The brewery has been critically important to so many drinkers. Earlier this month, he announced that the brewery is joining B3, a collective of brewers that includes Two Roads in Connecticut, Yards in Philadelphia, and Bald Birds, which has locations in both Jersey and Pennsylvania. He's here to talk about what prompted the move, what these kinds of deals mean for the industry, and what brewers can be doing to connect with consumers. Here's our conversation. Hugh, thanks for doing this.
Glad to do it.
Well, thanks. We're at this weird point in American beer, I think. There's a lot of strong headwinds, as people say. Maybe the seas are heavy. I don't quite know the nautical terms well enough, but it sounds like it's ominous and maybe difficult. When you look back to the start of Heavy Seas and and the brewery and everything that you were doing and the uphill battle and battles that you had to do to establish yourself, to get the recognition, and you and the others of your beer generation, the work that was ahead. What does this moment feel like for you?
This moment feels different. In the 90s, when we were putting together what was first Clipper City Brewing Company and then morphed into Heavy Seas, the industry was had been growing at just at a ridiculous pace, and then everybody and his brother was diving into it, and that caused a whole bunch of not very good brewers to make a lot of not very good beer. So we sort of had an inflection point, I want to say, in like 96, 97, 98, where things were hard, but the industry was still growing. Um, Now, we're in a position where there are more closings than there are openings. 8,000 new breweries opened in the last 12 or 13 years, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah,
And the category, alcoholic beverages, not growing. In fact, alcoholic beverages of all ilk are down. So the pie has just been cut into, it's not to use the analogy, we don't have, the rising seas to raise the boats right now. So things have been cut into smaller and smaller pies, pieces of the pie, and it's a tough go right now.
as you look back, right, and I've been trying to tease this out as well because I've been covering this now coming on 20 years, and for a long time it was always, the craft beer segment has 12.8% of the marketplace, 13% of the marketplace. There was that ambitious and probably unrealistic 20 by 20 goal that I think started getting floated around in like 2016, something like that. And like
Right.
craft never came close. And I've really been I've been asking people like, why? Like, did the industry just hit, all of the interested drinkers and it's just nobody else was interested? Are there still things that can be done? Yeah,
I think so. The wine industry is struggling now as well, and back in the days in the beginning of the craft beer segment, you know, if you wanted to be successful, you just had to not be Budweiser and let the world know you weren't going to be Budweiser.
sure.
Um, well, that point of differentiation has changed. Just like in the beginning, the California wine industry had to just be anything but Gala. Um, so we're now dealing with a mature industry. So now all of the hallmarks of successful business are what are going to be the defining things. I mean, I knew that there was a change coming. I guess about 10 years ago, I had a conversation with a wholesaler who basically told me if he heard one more guy come to him and say, "Here, I'm starting a brewery. I want you to carry my beer. This is my way of no longer being an accountant." Um, you know, it's not there's too many people who jumped into this thing not looking at it as a business, but looking at it as what it eventually became as an expensive hobby. Um, so it's a business. You've always got to treat it like a business. You got to know marketing, you got to know finance, you got to know manufacturing, you got to know efficiencies, and obviously you clearly have to know beer.
Yeah. There's something about all of those things that you just said where that's what I've been trying to track it back to, right? Because for a long time, there were a lot of, get into it for the passion and you're going to create a legacy business that you're going to hand off to your kids. And there's a lot of romanticism behind it.
Right.
And when I talk with, folks like you and, the other folks who were there early on, or even newer generation folks like who understood, there's things that I don't know how to do. I need to work with somebody, or hire somebody or, have somebody nearby who understands that part of the business so that I can, use my strengths because,
Sure.
the more, you're getting stretched in, accounting and maintenance and beer making and marketing and everything else, it gets diluted really fast.
It does. And, I mean, don't misunderstand me there. You do have to have a passion for the industry. There has to be, I mean, I remember my old brew pub days. It was hot, sweaty work, but at the end of the day, I could point to a tank of beer that I had just done. And so there's that sort of tangible reward at the end of the day in terms of this is what I accomplished. And I've always love that about this industry. I mean, it's kind of fun to walk through the facility when we're running bottles or something like that and see, 50 pallets of beer that we just ran today. So yeah, you still have to have the passion for it, but you've got to, like we just said, you have to be focused on the basic business fundamentals. Jim Cook clearly has a passion for the beer business, but
Yes.
there has never been a time in as long as I've known him, which is a fairly long time, when he hasn't first and foremost been a businessman.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's and it's worked out, and
Oh yeah.
diversification outside of beer as well, I think has
Well,
certainly.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's clearly been a strategy of his from the early days, and it has certainly served him well.
Yeah. I was thinking back before we came on today of the visits that I've had in the past, the conversations I've had in the past, watching you run tours, understanding the you know the welcoming nature that you have. And not over the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling a little bit more than usual, and I've been in locations that are new to me, and have walked into places, and I don't announce like, hey, I'm John Holl when I walk into places. My
Mhm.
ego wants me to, but I still have that that Catholic guilt where it's like, don't be boastful. But and it's just been sort of met with like, here's a menu, and then somebody walks away, and then they come back and it's, what do you want? And it that hasn't happened everywhere, but it's happened enough where I've noticed that as we talk about these headwinds, as we talk about the beer industry struggling, like, hospitality and restaurants struggling altogether, that hospitality has fallen off and the customer experience has fallen off a little bit as well. And one, I'm wondering if you've seen that. But two, it kind of goes back to my, how do you grow that piece of the pie? How do you make the pie bigger, with more consumers coming in? And so much of it is the experience, that hospitality experience that first timers get when they walk through the door. And
Well,
I look
you're
to you all as somebody who does that well. And it can't be
well,
easy to maintain it.
but it's not easy to maintain it. But by the same token, you can never lose sight of the fact that nobody out there owes you anything. So you can't take anything for granted. So when somebody walks in the door, somebody should be there to say, "Hey, how you doing? Thanks for coming." And if you can't do that, you should get the hell out of the business. Um, because as I said, nobody owes you anything. Just because you make good beer, that doesn't mean that they're obligated to purchase it. So yeah, and creating experiences that people can enjoy, so that when they're in your tap room or they come to a special event, or whatever, wherever there's going to be, some opportunity for people to interact with your company and the product, et cetera, you have to make that worthwhile. Failing to do that, you're in the wrong business. And Bart Watson from the Brewers Association in the last couple of years has been preaching about focusing on what are the social events where people are likely to want to enjoy your products, and make it about experiences, not just the product.
So there's two things that I want to unpack on this. I mean, like, one, I want to find out what's worked for you over the years, aside from just people saying, like, hey, how you doing, when they walk in the door. But also that consumer expectation, because there are still beer fans out there, and there are still the casual drinkers that are out there that are aware of, and I'll use your brand as an example, where they've known it for a long time. They like drinking it. They feel a connection to it because, it makes them feel good, or they like the taste and the flavor. And then they show up, and, it's for the first time, and it's like, oh, wow, this is where it's made. And there's that connection that's forged, between like the product and place.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of breweries that are, I think, starting to reach for that as well. Distro is really tough. And, but there's still brands that are out there. And when people come in, they have this intimate relationship with the product before they've even stepped foot in for the first time to where it's made, and seeing the people who make it. And so I'm wondering what you've learned in one, maintaining that relationship or setting that relationship for the first time, and then just for folks who stop in casually who don't know as well, like what's been the Heavy Seas model of the consumer success?
That's that's a good question. Um, well, I mean, for many years, although I'm not quite as active as I used to be, but I mean, I showed up for everything because there's that certain amount of, for lack of better words, cachet that comes about, being the guy,
Hmm.
and who still cares enough to show up. So I think that's certainly part of it. My daughter Caroline's getting more and more involved with things, so she's able to carry on that tradition. Um, the other thing too is and I literally just this afternoon read an interesting online thing talking about you know Lester Jones, correct?
I do,
Yeah,
yes.
he just did a thing about, on premise is coming back and that's where we should be focusing. And I think that's absolutely true because that's where people are socializing and enjoying the products. So
And I'll just
uh,
point out that Lester Jones is the economist for the NBWA, for the National Beer
yeah,
Wholesalers
yeah.
Association. Yeah,
He's a Baltimore guy. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think he lives in Texas most of the time now,
Okay, yeah, I
but
was going to say I always associate him with the Southwest for some reason, but yeah.
yeah. No, he grew up here.
Okay.
So yeah, but I mean, the fact that the data is after on premise basically collapsed obviously during COVID,
Yeah.
but all signs now are that on premise, off premise is dropping. It's becoming much more challenging, but on premise seems to be making a bit of a comeback, and I think that's great because that ties back into people being social with each other, and then hopefully that gets a little more momentum in the overall product category.
So we're at, again, this interesting point in beer. And for the last couple of years, we've started to see companies forming strategic alliances. Some folks have sold, some folks have closed. Some folks are seeing strength in numbers and finding folks that, I guess, align with them and complement and contrast and do all of the things.
Hmm.
And that's what you're going through right now.
Yep. Yep.
So how did this all come about?
It all came about because everybody's trying to find ways to grow their business, and we started, which I hadn't done for years. We started trying to do some contract brewing, and I lost a contract customer um, to the folks up at Yards. So I went up to see what they were doing that was better than what I was doing. And the crux of the matter was just a much more efficient operation, higher level of capital investment, which kind of terrified me. But they were just
What terrified you about that?
well, because it's one of those things where in order to compete with them, I was going to have to spend a whole lot more money on the facility, and this is not a business environment where investing in capital improvements probably is a prudent investment. So, but anyway, we got to talking, and then I was thinking about maybe we could downsize our footprint per se, and actually have some product made somewhere else more efficiently. Um, and that sort of led to a different series of conversations, and then ultimately Yards is becoming part of B3. Two Roads is becoming part of B3. And it just kind of made sense to do that and really take advantage potentially of synergies, efficiencies, ways, just as we were saying earlier, this is a business. So how do we make this a better, stronger, more streamlined, effective business with some scale, without having to turn around and individually go out and raise even more money. So I mean, that really was the genesis. I'm actually fairly excited about it.
So, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, please keep going. Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of cool about this is, um, if you're an employee of Heavy Seas Beer, um, you know, there's your vertical mobility is going to be limited. But if you're a part of something which has got four or five different branches, for lack of better words, your vertical ability to maybe work your way up the ladder gets much better. So it gives you the ability to have people who can look at this potentially as a career as opposed to a job.
That's cool. When you look at the other breweries that are involved with B3, and I'm curious as to where B3 comes from.
Okay. It comes from so there's there's a there's a small-ish brewery, and I say ish because there's a bigger part of the story, called Bald Birds Brewing.
Yeah, this is on my list to ask you
Okay.
because as I'm looking
So,
at this list of you and Two Roads and Yards and then
right.
Bald Birds, that old song, One of These Things is Not Like the Other, started playing in my head. But anyway,
Well,
okay, so yeah,
well,
B3 and then we'll get to it. Yeah.
so Joe Thurar, who is and his wife Abby, are the principals of Bald Birds Brewing. Um, Long story short, Joey shaves his head and his wife has alopecia, so that's where the name came from. And she is a lovely person. But so they did that. He was a banker. They started that company, and I don't really remember, I don't know all of the details, but he figured out pretty quickly that just this relatively small brewery, which is, I don't know, about 30 minutes outside of Philly, was only going to get him so far. So he acquired and built something like 150,000 square foot production co-packing facility in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania, which is actually nowhere near the Jersey Shore.
Yes.
Uh, and the driver for his company is the co-packing business. So, I mean, I think they're doing some of these, what do they call them? Surf sides.
Okay.
Some of that's being made there. And I don't even know all the customers that he's doing, but they're doing things a whole lot more than just beer.
Okay.
Uh, so 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 that's kind of where the B3 comes from,
Okay.
and that co-packing facility, not unlike what Two Roads has got. I mean, those are the super efficient pieces in the puzzle.
Yeah. And Yards is doing a significant amount of contract brewing these days.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
It's called, what is the most expensive thing in the beer business?
What?
Equipment that's not running.
Yes. So when you look at then the four breweries and the way that what all of you have on the marketplace, what all of you have historical and innovative, and I mean Two Roads has some of their NA stuff, and
Hmm.
I mean I don't know how much Phil Markowski is still making some of his wild and spontaneous stuff. I know they opened up that whole area too, gosh, a decade ago, and I don't know if
Right.
that's even doing anything anymore these days. But Yards is I think a reliable Philly standby, and you guys and all that. Like when you look at the whole package, going back to that consumer experience, what is this going to mean for them? What are the strengths that all four of you have now combined?
Well, okay. You just touched on one of them, NA. I don't have the capability to execute NA or do it well. But in partnership with this larger entity, if I want to spin off some sort of, heavy seas themed, or maybe take a different position, but if I want to supply an NA for my wholesalers down here, this is the path that allows me to get there. One of the things that we did in the last couple of years is sort of bring back the Dominion root beer product, and I want to expand into the soft drink business. And we can do that, and we have been doing that in our facility here, but we have to use sodium benzoate, and some other preservatives. Well, with what Joe Ferrara's got up in his Jersey Shore facility, he's got a tunnel pasteurizer, which means that I can eliminate those preservatives and even diversify a little bit more into the soft drinks. I mean, we were talking earlier about how Jim Cook's, one of his strategies has been diversification. Well, that's kind of everybody's strategy. So that's really where the synergies can pay off. The other area is in sales and marketing. So I've got a pretty well established wholesaler network and sales and marketing operation here, but maybe we can help some of those, the Yards brands and the Two Roads and some other things. We can supply support for them down here. They can supply support for us up in those markets. And we can really focus on, for lack of better words, the I-95 corridor.
Yeah.
For what this organization is all about. It's one of the words we've been hearing a lot of in the last several couple of years, and Bump Williams's group has been pushing this, is focus, focus, focus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to sell, I don't know, 20,000 cases a year in North Carolina. I don't even sell in North Carolina now. And people say, well, what happened? There's 500 breweries in North Carolina right now.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So whether you do it willingly or just find yourself forced into it, you need to stay focused on the area where you have the potential to actually be relevant. And the heady days of the river was a mile and a half wide but an inch deep. They don't work anymore. So it's all about having the ability to kind of combine forces and then all of us drill deep and help each other along the way.
Do you think that this is, I mean, we've seen it with, Harpoon has done it.
Yep.
Victory did it years ago.
Yep.
Do you anticipate more of this happening?
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that as the industry continues to be soft, and I don't think it's going to stay this way forever, but as it continues to be soft, this is the right business strategy. I mean, to remain. Look, if you're completely independent and you're also dependent on pretty much wholesale sales, especially in off premise. And you're not doing 60 or 70,000 barrels of beer a year, you're going to have a tough go. That's just the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So if your business is heavily dependent on your tap room, well, then you'll probably be okay. But most of us, if you were traditionally a manufacturing brewer for wholesale distribution, you're not typically located someplace which is a sexy location for foot traffic. So your taproom business is probably not really what's going to drive it.
I wanted to go back to the soda. I mean, I remember Dominion Root Beer, and
Yep.
it worked for Sprecher out in the Midwest, and
Sure did.
there's been other examples. I don't know if I've heard somebody talk about traditional soda in quite some time, and I'm wondering, where you see the potential. I mean, obviously you're doing it, but why that's working for you right now.
Well, it's, I mean, we're just scratching the surface right now, but, just look at it this way. You walk into the liquor store, you go to the craft beer category, and even though we've lost some shelf space, there's still an ocean of selections. You walk into the grocery store, you go to the gourmet soft drink section, and you will see 15 SKUs. To me, that says opportunity.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, it's looking for.
You're just looking for opportunity. I mean, one of the things that we focus very heavily on distribution and shelf sets from an off-premise perspective. And people say, why are you so focused on that? Because if it ain't on the shelf, they can't buy it.
Yeah.
Well, so if you look at things and say, okay, where am I going to get my greatest opportunity to get something on the shelf? And if there's only 15 SKUs in the store, that's an opportunity. If there's 250 SKUs in that category in the store, well, that's a little tougher.
You mentioned things being soft right now and that,
Hmm.
but that you think, well, the industry will get through it. Where do you see the path for the industry, writ large to?
I think that I think that there's a great deal of societal issues that are partly at play.
Hmm.
Legalization of cannabis is certainly having an effect. I don't. I still think that's a little bit of the shiny new toy,
Hmm.
and you know that industry is going to have to figure out what its rules and regulations are going to be because it's so screwed up right now. I mean, my sales director was working in New Jersey not, I don't know, 2 months ago, and he saw a product that was a 12-ounce beverage that had 50 milligrams of THC in it. Um, well, from what I'm hearing is somewhere between 2.5 to 5 milligrams per 12 ounce is kind of the safety-ish zone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are places where you can walk in and it's a traditional bar, but they can also serve you a THC drink. Well, what's wrong with this picture? It's dangerous. So, so I think there's going to be a lot of regulatory stuff that's going to happen in the cannabis slash THC beverage segment in the next couple of years, and I think it's good. I mean, people, I mean, right now it's a little dangerous, but I think that's going to finally hit its own sort of water level, if you will. Um, you know, Gen Z. Um, they were probably those younger people were probably the most adversely affected of all of us through COVID because they were just in their emerging teenage slash early adult years when, all of a sudden the world became massively antisocial. Um, they just seem to be struggling trying to be part of a greater social world. But I think that the generation that's coming in behind them, hopefully, won't have any of those issues. And so I think that's part of what's going to be contributing. It seems to be contributing to the fact that on-premise is finally, at long last, beginning to come back. I think what do they say, like 20% of the population now is doing these GLP-1 drugs.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, that tends to decrease alcohol consumption. And the fact that we're looking at softness in beer and wine and spirits tells me the whole thing is they're all tied to the same things. And we hear all this um, stuff about renewed interest in health, and I guess that's sort of a reaction to the whole COVID experience. But I think as that goes further and further in the rearview mirror, people are going to be a little more willing to focus on the things that make your quality of life a little more enjoyable. So I don't have a time frame for all this, but and I'm also old, so I'm looking back at lots of little bumps in the road, and we seem the sun still does come up tomorrow.
Yeah. It's important to remember during these times.
Oh yeah.
Um, so
I mean, you're seeing it. I mean,
I'm seeing the optimism. I'm seeing, paths forward. for folks. And, I think, the numbers that you cited, the barrelage that people are making, I agree that it's going to be tough for those folks. I think
Right.
small community tap rooms, where somebody's
They'll
got
be
a seven
fine.
barrel system and,
Yeah.
as long as they're making quality beer and they're, a place where people feel safe and comfortable and,
Yep.
like want to spend money and, aren't leaving feeling like they got robbed or, it's pretty good.
Yep.
So it's, I'm definitely seeing the potential for bright spots.
Right.
Which I'm, you know, as I cover this and, I need the industry to do well so that I can continue to do what I love. It's, I'm still a fan. I'm still a customer.
Yeah.
Um, I went back and I looked, and you were last on this podcast back in December of 2020.
Oh, wow.
And obviously it's been a long time since there, and I don't know exactly when I started asking this final question on the podcast, but I don't believe that we went through it. But since about 2020, or the end of it, while we were all safely ensconced indoors, or many of us were. My
Hunkered down.
Yeah, my wife and I rewatched the television show The Good Place, and in the final season of the show, they introduce a concept of a green door where the characters can walk through it and be anywhere they want, doing whatever they want. And so I started asking folks around the time that you were on the show, but I can't remember if I asked you this question, but if we had a green door on our plane of existence and this conversation ended and you could be in any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking?
Hmm. Any pub. Okay. Well, I have two answers to that. The first is, as you well know, I got started in the brew pub business, and with
Mm-hmm.
my family's business back, um, which was open from 1980 to probably 1998. Um, the first place I'd like to be would be back in that pub, probably about year 1992, because that was actually one of the most fun places I ever had the privilege to both work and patronize. Um, and I would be there with my father, who was one of the great joke tellers of all time, and probably a guy named Joe Gold. I don't know if you know him, but he's been in and out of the beer business for forever. So that would be one version of that. The second version of that, which is somewhat tangential, um, would be to be in one of the Young's pubs in London
Okay.
back in how long ago did Young's go away?
Oh gosh. Only within like the last decade or so.
Yeah, something
Probably
like
half
that.
that, but yeah.
Just and I just mentioned Joe Gold. Well, when I first met him, he actually was employed by Young's, and he was working the American market. So he actually sold. We were when Sisson's before Sisson's became a brew pub. Um, we were a beer joint, and so we were one of the first Young's customers. So I visited those pubs on a number of different occasions, and being in their brewery, and they have these amazing draft horses, and years and years ago, not that long ago, actually, they still used to deliver the beer to their pubs by horse-drawn cart. So that would be that. Just I just love the history about that and the old feeling and the camaraderie that was all part of that.
I like that. That's really cool to hear. I miss those pubs too. Those were fun places.
Yeah.
Although towards the end, it was like you couldn't get a good selection. It
No.
was, just like whatever, the golden was. You couldn't get a porter to save your life. You couldn't get yeah. But I remember the first time I went over and some of those great experiences.
Oh yeah.
Um, well, congrats on B3
Thank you.
and the next chapter of Heavy Seas, and it's always good talking to you, always good hearing your voice and getting your perspective, and it helps me understand where things are. So I hope everybody else got something out of it as well. But thanks for doing this, Hugh.
My pleasure. Nice to hear from you.
If you like smoked beer, make sure you join the This Week in Rauk Beer group on Facebook or follow at TW Rauk Beer on Instagram. Upload your photos, join the conversation. You can always reach me by email anytime you want. It's John Holl at allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL. And you can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support. When you're at the website, check out the new content that we have up there, as well as the archives. And you can also find the links to follow All About Beer on social media. Before we go, here's a note from this episode's sponsors. We thank them for their support. We hope you'll give them your business.
Hey folks, this is Andy Crouch from All About Beer. I wanted to take a second to thank Pure Project for coming on as an underwriter. We appreciate having the support of this sustainably sourced San Diego brewery. Pure Project believes that quality ingredients and attention to detail matter, from grain to glass. You can enjoy their beer at multiple locations in San Diego and the North County. If you want to join Pure Project and the more than 25 other underwriters helping us pay our writers, podcasters, and artists, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. It's an affordable way to join the All About Beer community.
StompStickers.com is loaded with features to make ordering a breeze. They save all your artwork and order history, so restocking your bestsellers is just a click away. Oh, and did we mention free shipping on every order? Try Stomp Stickers today and snag 15% off of your first order with the code FIRSTRUN.
Calling all hopheads. Dogfish Head's 60-minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60 Minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60 Minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
If you like smart audio content, a reminder that All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. As for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo. I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.